Hey, welcome to another video here at Hobbies and Happiness. My name's Dan.
I'm Jim, and today we're doing a tier list of the superheroes in DC deck building game.
All right, so this is one of the first videos of this series, or types of videos that we're doing for DC Deck Building Game. Wanted to get more in depth into these games that we've been playing, so this is the first in this set of videos. All right, so before we get into it, some quick ground rules. So we're talking about the DC Deck Building Game core box here. We have seven superheroes found in that core set. We have Cyborg, Flash, Green Lantern, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman. So we are going to be talking about these superheroes in essentially as a general term as we possibly can. There's multiple ways you can play this game. However, we felt the best way to evaluate these superheroes is individually and as a general widest sense as you possibly can. You can play crisis mode, you can play this game cooperative, but that is a more specific version of this game. So we wanted to basically evaluate these on as broad a scale as you possibly can. So if you're not familiar with tier lists, you've got S tier is your highest, then you have A, then you have B, C, followed by D is the lowest tier. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through each individual hero, and we're gonna go from the bottom of our list to the top. So with all of that out of the way, let's get into it. And the first superhero we have is Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman. All right, so first of all, Wonder Woman, her superhero, her ability is for each villain you buy or gain during your turn, draw an extra card at the end of your turn. So, Jim, you gave Wonder Woman a D, correct?
Yeah, I gave her the bottom tier.
All right, why?
So drawing cards is really strong. It's delaying you a turn that you're drawing the card, but it's also a thing of the deck at that point doesn't matter. So like throughout the game, you only get the ability whenever it is that you're buying the villains from the lineup. So that's why I put her in the lowest tier, is just because the deck doesn't really matter for her, and it's not a consistent thing that you could just be proccing every single turn. So with all of these heroes, that's kind of one of the ways that we're evaluating this is how often can you trigger their ability, and how essentially that's really the issue at hand is how much can you abuse that hero's ability. So I actually gave Wonder Woman a B tier. So a couple of different tiers different. So I'm fully on board with what Jim said, where you're the only way you can proc it is buying the supervillain, or excuse me, a villain from the lineup. Now, supervillains do proc. Now, we did look at the entirety of the cards. So there are a total of 31 villains in the set. So that's about 28% of the card pool. It doesn't say from the lineup.
Correct. It does not say from the lineup.
So it also counts supervillains?
It does count supervillains.
All right, yeah, she's higher now.
So that's why kind of I put her in that B tier. Was because in addition to all the villains, you do have the supervillains. So while she only does proc on the turn you pick up a villain from the lineup, there's a lot of low cost villains, and that she's always going to help you in the early game, mid game, and the late game when you are purchasing, buying cards for your deck. So I'm at the B tier for Wonder Woman. Where would you now put her? Would you move her up to C?
I would probably put her at C at that point. Oh man, it's now a lot more difficult.
I would be okay. I think I'd be okay putting her at C tier, just because. I mean, again, with all of these, it really is dependent on what you're getting from the lineup, I think I'd be okay putting her at C tier, just because it really is. It's only at the end of your turn, and that's all you can do with her ability. So I think C tier. I mean, are you kind of good with that C tier?
Yeah, I think C tier is really good. And then the other thing about it is, I don't believe it's just one card, correct?
If you buy, it is one card per villain.
So if you buy or get 2 villains,
Yes.
then you can get 2 cards on your following
Yeah.
turn. So
Yeah.
I think that is
So that was kind of why I had initially put her higher at that B tier, but I think I'm okay putting her at the C tier. Just because, again, that constraints where it is just that once, and honestly, it's at the end of your turn, and then you're just set up for that next turn.
It's not
and then
proactive to go off on that turn.
Right, it is very, very, very reactive.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's Wonder Woman. Putting Wonder Woman in the C tier. The next superhero. Why don't you go ahead and read off Superman?
Yes, Superman. +1 power for each different superpower you play during your turn.
Yep. So real quick, I put Superman in D tier.
Yeah.
You initially put him a little bit higher, correct?
Yeah, I did put him in C tier.
Okay.
So just 1 step higher.
Yeah, so let me kind of explain real quick why I put Superman in D tier. Okay, so Superman, again, it's each different superpower. So the good thing about Superman is he does see the kicks. Kicks are their own individual stack, and those are superpowers, okay? So that is a good thing. However, the fact that it's different superpowers, here's something very interesting. There are a total of 15 cards that are superpowers in the entire deck. That is 14%. 14% of the entire deck is superpowers. That is a very, very small number.
And aside from that,
Yes.
7 out of those 15, so half of them
Yes.
are defense cards.
Yeah.
Which there's
Which
going
are
to be
great.
some times
Yes.
where you don't play it.
Yes,
you
because
use
you're using
the
it for defense. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then you don't get the effect of the +1 power because,
Correct.
well, it's probably not your turn at that point.
Yes.
So
that's why I put Superman in D tier. Now you had him in C tier.
yeah.
What do you think?
So I do like that. Sure, it's different names.
Yeah.
But you can get the kicks very early on as well.
Yes, that is a pro for sure.
And sure, sometimes it's not to where, you're going to pop off as much because you could have like 2 or 3 kicks, but still getting that 1 extra power every single turn, especially in the early stages of the game, can really help you.
Yeah. I still really think just the D tier because honestly, you're not going to abuse Superman that much.
No, it's not going to be abused.
I mean, you will get at max maybe 3.
Yeah.
Maybe. That's if you're lucky.
I really wouldn't mind putting him in the lowest tier.
Yeah.
Just because I moved the Wonder Woman up.
Yeah. So I think we're gonna put Superman in D tier.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all right. So that's Superman. That's kind of basically, I believe that's our our D tier and our C tier.
Yeah.
Kind of. So we have, so the next one, this next superhero, we did have a little bit of a difference. Again, just really by 1.
Yeah.
So it's Batman. All right. So Batman, my favorite superhero in all of DC Comics. So +1 power for each equipment you play during your turn.
Yeah.
I had Batman in C tier. Jim had Batman in
B tier.
Yes. So this is going to be very interesting. So real quick, again, let's look at some numbers here. Equipment, 27 equipment cards in the main deck.
Yep.
All right. So again, that's roughly 25%. So a quarter of the cards are going to be equipment. And again, with the amount of times we've played this game, we see equipment a lot. You see equipment a lot in this game. Now, the good thing about Batman is it's not different equipment. It's every equipment. Every single equipment you play, you're getting +1 power.
Yep.
So, yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. I'm honestly, I don't know what I'm thinking, man.
I'm like, I put them higher into the B tier because of how good the equipments are.
Yeah, the equipment are really good.
And you just pop off even more having those equipments.
So real quick, think about the card Batmobile. Okay, so Batmobile is a fantastic card. Basically, Batmobile, what it states, if I remember correctly, actually, I see it right here.
There you go.
So we see it right here. All right, so Batmobile is a 2-cost equipment. It says that if this is the first card you play during this turn, discard your hand and draw 5 cards. So you're basically playing an additional card here. Now it does say otherwise +1 power. So if you play this first, you don't get any power. You don't get anything off of
the card
itself.
Yeah.
But if you're playing with Batman, you're always getting the +1 power.
Yeah.
So
And normally, regardless of who you're playing,
Yes.
you want equipments.
yes, 100%.
They are so strong.
They're very, very good, especially in the core set. Some of the best cards in the game, I feel like, are the equipment in this game. Now, the superpowers are very powerful. It's just there's not a lot. There are not a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm totally fine putting Batman in B tier.
Yeah, another reason I also said that was because there are only 6 out of the 27 equipments that are defense cards as well.
Okay. So the majority of those equipment cards you're going to be using proactively versus reactively from a defensive standpoint. Okay. So that's basically what we have for the D tier, C tier, and B tier.
Yep.
I believe. Okay. So we're going to move into the A tier. All right. So the first A tier hero we're going to talk about is Aquaman.
So let's pull him up.
All right,
quick.
so go
A
ahead.
is for Aquaman.
So yeah, what is Aquaman?
So you may put any cards with cost 5 or less that you buy or gain during your turn on the top of your deck.
Yes. I mean, that is so good. That is so good in the early game, so good in the mid game, and so good in the late game.
Yes.
Always good. So the obvious downside is it does not look at cards that are cost 6 or higher.
Yeah.
That's the only downside. However,
I do also think a downside for it is that it falls off in the end game. Because in our one game that we played, when you were having really good cards in the deck, but you weren't able to go through it and shuffle up the deck, or they were towards the bottom, and if you're buying 1 or 2 cards every single turn, putting them on top, you're taking even longer to go through your deck to get to those really good cards.
Right.
But early mid game, he's a monster.
Yeah, it's just any time. Any card that costs 6 or higher is an amazing card in this game.
Yeah.
So the fact that you have to wait as long as you normally do when you're buying these cards is an obvious downside when everything else you're seeing immediately that next turn. You're literally drawing into your next hand. So one of the great things about Aquaman is you can play in your next turn.
Oh, but so many times where you have the equipment in your discard and then you go get a Robin, put Robin on top, draw into your next turn, play Robin, get an equipment from your discard that you just played that could give like 5 power or whatever it is. It's absurd the combos that you can do with Aquaman.
Yeah. So I just think there's enough downsides for Aquaman not to be in S tier that I think A tier is a perfect spot to put Aquaman. So next we're going to talk about Green Lantern.
This guy.
Green Lantern is another hero that we think is definitely A tier material.
Yeah.
So Green Lantern, if you play 3 or more cards with different names and cost 1 or more during your turn plus 3 power. So the downside to Green Lantern is early game, he does nothing. Early game.
Yeah.
So there's 2 conditions that you need to look for in proccing Green Lantern. The cards need to cost 1 or more, and you need to play 3 different cards.
Yep.
Those are the only 3 things. So immediately you're probably going to be going. If you can get a kick, you're probably going to be getting a kick. Because again, that's just another card. You probably want at least 2 or 3 kicks in your deck.
Yeah.
Because that's another card. That's a different card that can help you proc Green Lantern.
Yeah.
The best thing about Green Lantern, late game, you are proccing him every single turn.
Plus 3 power.
Every
so
single
much.
turn, you are most likely proccing him.
He's crazy.
So again, the biggest thing, honestly, if you get rid of your entire starting deck every single turn, you're getting it.
Yeah.
Every single
Guaranteed.
turn. It's a guaranteed plus 3 power.
Yeah.
So there's plus 3 power is huge.
You know, the other thing I was thinking about with his downside, which is the early game.
Yes.
I mean, that's really all of their downsides. You know, it's
Except
like,
Aquaman.
Yeah. Except for Aquaman.
Except Aquaman. It's like that's Aquaman's strong
and it's
strong
like
point.
At that point, in the early stages, everyone has to be building up their card collection, getting really good cards, whatever it is.
Yep.
And at that point, the early game doesn't really hurt him, hurt Green Lantern.
Yep.
Because it's like, well, they're not really doing anything either. And if they get the +1 every now and again here and there, it's okay.
It's
like
okay.
the first 5 turns, everyone's just building their deck.
Yep.
So-
Yep. Everybody's doing what they should be doing and are normally doing in the deck building game, basically.
And then you just pop off mid and late.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, I think Aquaman and Green Lantern are both definite A tier material. All right, now we're gonna move on to the two heroes in S tier. All right, the first one, I believe I read Green Lantern.
Yeah.
So go ahead. Which one do you want to read there?
You know what? I'm gonna read this one.
All right, go right ahead.
So we went with Cyborg in S tier.
Oh, 100%.
If you play one or more superpowers during your turn, +1 power. He also has, if you play one or more equipments during your turn, draw a card.
So one of the things that we kind of looked into when we were evaluating these is the deck building options that you have, okay?
Yeah.
So the thing about having these superheroes is they want you to build your deck a certain way, right? So in doing that, so you want to take that path that hero eventually is going to lead you on and say, okay, what options do I have at my disposal? That's why with Batman and Superman, okay, Superman is very, very specific in its superpowers, but it's the different superpowers, so very, very narrow. Batman, wider because there's more equipment available to you, but again, is only in the equipment route. Cyborg is both of those. And he gives you he gives you power for the superpowers, but then it's card draw for the equipment. So one of the most powerful things you can do in any card game is draw additional cards.
Yeah.
And that is stapled to Cyborg. So I mean,
he's a bit busted.
I think that's a pretty clear reason as to why Cyborg is S tier.
Yeah.
I mean, you got anything else there? Because it's pretty
the versatility,
yes.
the power of his abilities,
Yes.
and not to mention the strength of the cards already
Yes.
inside of
Yes,
equipment
correct.
and superpowers.
Yes, the superpowers and the equipments are some of the most powerful cards in the game.
Yeah.
And the fact that superhero wants you to build around all of those cards, sign me up. Cyborg is busted.
Because it's what, 27 plus the 15?
Yep.
So what, 42?
Yeah, so you're more than 50%. You're more than 50%. Oh, I'm
it's
sorry.
less.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. I was looking at a different number. So yeah,
It should be like
superpowers.
40%.
Yeah. So right. You're right around 40 or so percent. Yeah. A little bit higher.
Yeah, it's a little good.
Yeah.
And then
so
if you have the locations on top of that,
Yes.
the ones that really benefit you.
Yeah.
whew.
Yeah, it's absurd. It's absurd. All right, and then we've basically left the best for last, and that is the Flash.
The fastest man alive.
Fastest man alive. So he basically has two things. Number one, you go first. I mean,
That's why he's number one.
That is honestly, that is so very powerful.
Yeah.
So powerful. Just to go first, that is powerful. And then the next thing is
all right, sorry, yeah, go ahead. Go
okay,
ahead.
yeah. So
I'm
next,
excited.
So the next thing, the first time a card tells you to draw one or more cards during each of your turns, draw an additional card. Again, card draw is stable to your superhero. I mean, every time you're so what the Flash wants you to do is draw cards.
Yeah.
So you are prioritizing card draw, which is again every card that every player is going to prioritize is anything that draws cards.
Pretty much.
So you get a location. If you get a location, each of these locations basically says if you play a card type, draw a card.
Yeah.
Draw 2 cards.
There's only 5 of them, and they're very specific on how you trigger those
Yes,
draw
they are.
spells.
Yes.
And they're some of the most powerful cards in the game.
Correct. And so again, we talk about deck building routes, right? Flash so wide is so wide because all it is drawing cards.
Yeah.
It's you draw cards. Okay, Flash is going to let you draw more cards. Draw more cards leads to more power, buying power, which leads to killing the supervillains quicker. Essentially, is basically
because you're not going to want to have bad cards in your deck.
Yes,
So when
right.
you're drawing a card, it's probably a really good card.
Correct.
Or it's draw another card, and then you play that card to draw another card.
So one of the cards that I normally don't like because it literally does nothing is Kid Flash. All Kid Flash says is draw a card.
Yeah, it's just a cantrip.
So all that is, and cantrips by themselves are not good cards. By themselves are not good cards.
I'm like, if it's free cantrip, it's an amazing card.
Well, right. But again, in this game specifically, all you're doing is draw a card. It's different versus draw a card. Oh, by the way, you also get a power. Okay, that's different, right?
Yeah.
But if all the cantrip does is draw you 1 card, not the greatest. However, Kid Flash paired with the Flash, draw 2 cards. Okay, that is really
That's
good.
a lot better.
That is so much better. So, yeah.
I'm also thinking about it with the Batmobile.
Yeah.
Discard your hand, draw 5, then draw another one.
Yes. So that's basically the tier list. I highly recommend you go watch all of our other DC deck building game videos.
Yeah.
We've played each and every one of these heroes, so you can see these heroes in action. Flash, fantastic. One thing again, we did mention, but keep this in mind. Each of these heroes triggers independently. They do not trigger. If you're playing a game basically two-headed giant where you're controlling 2 superheroes, they do not trigger themselves. I had a game to where I was playing as the Flash and Wonder Woman and said, oh, Wonder Woman, I got a villain. So now I draw a card, but now I have the Flash just draw an additional card. They do not see each other's triggers. So they trigger independently and only from the cards that you play.
Honestly, it should work
I think
like
it
that.
should too.
I think so.
I think it should too. If you want to have your own house rule that says that's okay, be our guest. Totally do that. But again, from the designers, they say that is not how it was designed. And so that is totally fine. Just keep that in mind. So
there was one thing I wanted to add.
The Flash.
So about the going first rule,
Yes.
right? In a 1v1, it's not that bad. But now when you introduce 3, 4, 5 people, the person who's sitting to your right, if you're going clockwise, is furious. Because now they're going last.
They're going last, yeah. Oh, you're playing a Flash? Well, depending on how you
You're
choose
like, I'm
your
gonna move
heroes.
my seats.
Yeah, right. Depending on how you choose heroes, be like, I'm going to move.
Yeah.
Right, yes.
It'd be dreadful.
Yeah. So keep that in mind. All right, so that is our first tier list for DC deck building game. So we talked about the core set superheroes found in that core set box. We're going to be evaluating all these other heroes in all these other boxes. But before we can do that, we need to play a lot of games with them so we can really give you the best information possible. So if you like videos like this, go ahead and hit that like button. So let us know. Shoot us some comments down below. Do you agree with this list? Do you have Superman higher? Do you have Batman higher? Do you have Cyborg lower? If you have Cyborg lower, you're wrong.
Or the Flash. Yeah, you're wrong.
Yeah, you're wrong. Let us know if you agree with us or you disagree with us. Let us know down below in the comments. And so that's all we got for today. Thanks everybody for being here, and we will catch you in the next video. All right, see you everybody.
Take care.